This is Sara with Posh Pooch Designs, and today's video I'm going to show you how to make the classic granny square. And I had some people ask me, because there are several different techniques that you can use to get similar results. And so I had someone ask me, what is the difference between a granny square and an Afghan square? And I always answer the first word, Afghan or granny. But basically, a granny square is made in this particular fashion where you have center and moving out. An Afghan square basically can be any kind of square. It doesn't have to be this style, but you can sew it into an Afghan. So I'm going to show you my way, my technique of making a classic old-fashioned granny square. And I have to tell you, I loved granny squares before it was popular to love granny squares. I have always loved them, and there's so much fun things that you can make with them. All right, let's go ahead and get started. For the demonstration, I'm going to use this thicker yarn, and I've got a thicker needle here. This is a K-hook, just because I want you to be able to see. All right, what we're going to do first, we're going to do our slip knot and then chain 5, and make sure you leave yourself a little bit of a tail. You know, 5 or 6 inches, nothing major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we chained 5. We're going to take that tail and slide it in that loop and snug that down like that, and then we're going to just tie a little knot in it. And we're going to be starting in that circle. If my ball of yarn doesn't roll off the table. All right, put your hook in that hole, that circle we made, pull up a loop, and then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do 2 double crochets, double crochet, wrap your yarn over your hook, go in that hole, pull up a loop, go through the first 2, go through the second 2. That's a double crochet. We're going to make 1 more double crochet. So our first chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. Then we put on 2 more double crochets, and we're going to chain 2. 1, 2. Now we're going to repeat that 3 more times. We're going to put 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and chain 2. We're going to do it 2 more times. My ball keeps rolling around. So we've got 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and it's a tight fit. All right, 3 more. 1, 2, 3, chain 2. Now we're at the end. We did 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then we're going to join to the top of that chain 3 and slip stitch. Now before we do that, I want you to look at the back, and you can see we've got a little bit of a hole. And what you can do to close that hole is just put that piece of yarn on a needle and just go around those stitches that we just made, just like that. And close up that hole. You can see it closed up nicely. And go back around there a little bit and snip off that yarn. And now you've closed your hole and weaved in your beginning yarn all in one. All right, so now we've done our first row and we've got these 4 corners. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch in the next 2 double crochets, and this gets us over to this corner. Then we're going to go in the corner and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to place 2 more double crochets in that first corner, so that gives us a total of 3 double crochets. Now we'll chain 2, and then we're going to put 3 more double crochets in that corner. 1, 2, 3, and chain 2. 1, 2. And there we formed our first corner. And now we're going to repeat this on the next 3 corners. We're going to put 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and now we'll put 3 more double crochets to form our second corner. 1, 2, 3, and chain 2. And then we'll repeat the same thing we just did. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and we'll do that in those next 2 corners. Now you can see we've made our 4 corners by putting 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, then we chain 2 and made our chain 2 spaces in between, and now we're going to join, we chain 2, now we're going to join to the top of the chain 3. And now we want to get back over to this corner so we can start in a corner again. So we're going to slip stitch in those next 2 double crochets, and then we go in that corner, pull up a loop, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now I do this technique with the slip stitches because it always keeps me on the front side of our granny square. A lot of people have you flip it over and you're going front, back, and I like to keep it all going the same direction. I think you get a more true gauge and a more just more classic look, and it just, to me, it's just neater. So now we're on row 3, so we're going to put 3 double crochets. So we already have our chain 3. We're going to do the corner exactly the same, and the corner will be exactly the same no matter how many rows you add. You'll always do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and of course your beginning chain 3 always counts as your double crochet. So now we're going to chain 2, and where this changes is now we're going to be stitching also in our chain 2 spaces, and every row you will get more and more chain 2 spaces as you get and add more rows onto your granny square. So we're going in that chain 2 space, we're going to put 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2. And this is how you will repeat every side for this row. You'll do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then you'll put 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space, and then you'll repeat that on all 3 sides. So now you can see that I made the 4 corners, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then we put 3 double crochet in that chain 2 space. And now we're going to join to the top of that chain 3. And after this, every row is exactly the same, as big as you want it, because now we have 2 chain 2 spaces on each row, on each side. And you'll continue that however big you want to make your granny square. And the key to keeping it neat and tidy, in my opinion, is not to flip it back and forth, but to, when you join here, always slip stitch in those next one in each of the next 2 double crochets, then go in the corner and begin your round with your first chain 3 as your first double crochet. To me, that makes a nice and tidy granny square. And if you go ahead and when you first start and do that pull in, closing that hole, you can work in your yarn you used with your needle and you won't have anything to weave in there. It's just, to me, this is my favorite way to make a simple granny square. And I don't know about you, but I love granny squares. I think they're awesome, and there's so much that you can do with them. Making it out of this big thick, this is like a chunky 5 and my great big K-hook. And this is make a nice just doily to put something on top of. So anyway, that's the way I make my granny squares. Here's one I did in gray with the smaller yarn, and you can see now there are 3 chain 2 spaces. And each row that you do, the corners are the same. You'll get an additional chain 2 space that you'll need to put an additional 3 double crochets, chain 2. Granny squares are fun.